This is a test. My name is George McAndrews.
My name is Doug Carlson.
This is a test. My name is Doyl Taylor.
My name is Kent Carter.
My name is James Cherney.
My name is Douglas Pope.
My name is William Tabor, and that concludes the test.
This is the beginning of tape number 2. The time is 12:18.
Mr. Taylor, we will be breaking for lunch in a little while, so I would like to cover a subject matter that we might be able to finish before lunch. Were there medical physicians other than Dr. Thompson that we discussed a moment ago that thought you should be more discriminatory in your campaign involving chiropractic?
Objective form.
I have no idea whether there were other physicians or not.
All right.
That way.
Let me hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 1705. Now, this is written by Roger N. White, who is obviously not a medical physician, but he's from the Illinois State Medical Society. And let me ask you if you remember receiving that letter.
Question, please.
Do you recall receiving this letter?
I don't recall the letter, but it has the stamp that it was received by the Department of Investigation, so I'm assuming it was received by the department.
Okay. Did you know a Roger N. White?
I certainly did.
Do you consider him to have been an honorable man?
Yes.
All right. Do you believe him when he says that in the bottom paragraph on page 1, many of them, referring to legislators, have told me personally that they have been to a chiropractor or some member of their family had been to a chiropractor and they have found relief? You believe that that was correct?
I would assume so.
Okay. While you were head of the Department of Investigation and secretary to the Committee on Quackery, did you hear reports from time to time that patients declared that they had received relief from going to chiropractors?
I don't think there was ever any premise that they there was absolutely no possibility of relief. If chiropractic had maintained itself had contained itself to strains and sprains, I don't think this problem would have arisen to begin with. When chiropractic started practicing medicine, then that's something that medicine has to pay attention to. I believe these people who are being referred, that Roger White is talking about, as legislators or family members who may have had some relief, may have had strains or sprains and received the equivalent of a YMCA massage by a chiropractor.
Right. And you never did find out, did you, what it was a chiropractor did in his office in the way of manipulation? Is that correct?
Personally?
Yes.
No, I did not.
All right. What, if anything, did you do in response to Mr. White's letter to you of November 25, and it doesn't have the last year, it's 19-something.
like it's 66.
66, you may have a better copy. All right.
It's very vague, 2 digits at the end.
All right.
I may be mistaken, but that's what it looks like to me.
Did you take any steps to be more discriminatory in response to Mr. White's expression here?
I'm sure we as far as I know, we did not, and I don't remember anything that we ever did with it. I may have talked to Roger.
Did you continue with the campaign to contain and eliminate chiropractic?
As a recognized healthcare service, yes.
All right. Did you continue to condemn all chiropractors as cultists?
We continued to condemn chiropractic as a cult. As I have said to you at least twice today, our whole program is aimed at chiropractic, the sin, not the sinners.
All right. On page 2, in the second paragraph, the third line down, over at the end of the line, it says, if we openly condemn them as cultists, how do we maintain any reasonable working relationship? Was it your understanding that the medical profession was condemning chiropractors as cultists?
Objection to form and foundation.
Would you answer the question, please?
There is no question where the AMA stood as far as chiropractic was concerned. It was a cult.
And were chiropractors cultists?
Any chiropractor who held himself out as competent to treat the broad gamut of human disease with the education and training of a chiropractor in those days was not only a cult, he was a quack.
All right. And did you ever issue guidelines, such as you've just announced, that was the type of chiropractor the public should not go to or the medical physician should not deal with, and there was another type of chiropractor that they could go to or could consult with?
We certainly did not. I will say again, Mr. McAndrews, if a house of cards is built, it cannot exist.
All right.
And chiropractic was a house of cards. It could not exist as a medical
It could not exist?
as a recognized medical service.
All right. Well,
Should not.
It should not. It was existing, was it not?
Yes, it still is, as far as I know.
All right. Now, I asked you if medical physicians had questioned the position of the AMA on the lack of discrimination as between those chiropractors that could help certain conditions and chiropractors generally who were cultists. I'd like to hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 1476 and ask you if that was ever called to your attention. It was produced by the American Medical Association as document number 8350.
I don't know that your prefatory statement has anything to do with your question. The question is was 1476 brought to his attention?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I don't remember it, but I'm reasonably sure that it was.
All right. Why are you reasonably sure that it was?
Bill Monahan worked for me.
All right. And I notice on the next page, 1476A, there is a Circulation and Records Department Physician's Historical Record. Where did that come from, if you know?
Came from our Circulation and Records Department.
Was it your practice to check out the pedigree, so to speak, of any medical physician that said anything favorable to chiropractic?
No.
Do you know why Dr. Healy's historical record was pulled from your files?
Probably just because of interest to see what he was, what he did, what type of practice he had.
All right. And reviewing that, could you conclude that he was a reputable medical physician?
Yes.
And what is your conclusion?
he is obviously he's a reputable medical physician, and he is was editor of the King County Medical Society Journal.
All right. And do you understand his comment labeled a modest proposal?
No, I have not read it completely. Would you
All
like
right.
me to read it? You said we wanted to hurry, and I'll be happy to sit here and read it if you
All right, would you sit there and read it, please?
I have read it.
All right. Did the Committee on Quackery, to your knowledge, do anything with the modest proposal made by Dr. Healy?
I have no idea what it had. You have all the committee
All right.
minutes, and for 1972, there must have been a meeting shortly after that, and I'm sure that if there was, this was in the agenda.
Did you ever have occasion to recall, do you ever recall the Committee on Quackery discussing the fact that many medical physicians thought your actions were overbroad?
No.
Right?
Because it was such a simple answer.
There was such a simple what?
Answer. Our answers were, we could not be overbroad because you can't build on nothing.
Okay.
I don't care whether you're an ICA member or an ACA member.
So
They both believe the same thing.
So there was no possibility of any discrimination as to whether or not there could be voluntary professional associations with anyone in the chiropractic ranks. Is that correct?
As far as I know, that's correct.
Okay, and for how long a period, to your knowledge?
Voluntary Professional Association.
Yes, and did that continue up to the day you left the AMA?
As far as I know, it was still in existence.
And
at the time of that.
did you ever hear anyone at the AMA question that?
I don't remember anybody ever questioning it, at the AMA or elsewhere.
All right, now, I'm going to set aside, we can have the judge determine whether Dr. Thompson in that document questioned whether or not you should be more discriminatory about, all right? Did you ever hear anyone say that medical physicians, in fact, did deal with chiropractors?
Well, I think the ACA Journal printed something on the president of the AMA having said that he referred to chiropractors and then subsequently printed a retraction.
Okay, on that point, was that Dr. Hoffman?
That was Dr. Hoffman.
Did you write Dr. Hoffman's retraction letter for
I
him?
certainly did not. I never discussed it with Dr. Hoffman.
I think you said there was an ACA retraction.
Yes, I understand that, but didn't Dr. Hoffman send a letter?
In fact, I believe a letter was published in the ACA Journal over his signature.
All right.
I had nothing to do with it.
You had nothing to do with it. All right. Did you see the letter?
When?
Well, at any time.
I saw it in the ACA Journal.
All right. Did the Committee on Quackery help Dr. Hoffman prepare the letter? Do you know?
They did not. No member of the Committee on Quackery had anything to do with Dr. Harrison's letter.
All right. Did the Committee on Quackery call the letter to the attention of Dr. Hoffman?
That was not necessary.
Whether it was necessary or not, did you?
No.
All right. I hand you what's previously been identified as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1471 and 1472 and ask you if you recall seeing either of these back in 1971 or about the date that's on the letter.
I assume you want me to read it, right? I don't recall having ever seen it before.
You don't recall ever having seen it. All right. Would you look at the letter of Mr. Monahan to Mr. Oberfield?
Yes.
Did you ever see that letter before?
I may have. I don't know. I don't remember it.
All right. Do you remember a student publication at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine that published a report on a visit to a chiropractic college that was somewhat favorable to chiropractic?
No. I do not remember any such report.
All right. Did Mr. Monahan work for you?
Yes.
Was he directly under your
Yes.
supervision?
Yes.
And would he have, was this response within the line of his authority?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, did you delegate to him the right to respond to materials that might be involve chiropractic?
No. I had a system whereby I would distribute the mail, which was monumental.
To what? I'm sorry?
I would distribute the mail, which was monumental, to the 3 staff members and retain a part of it myself.
All right.
This may have been sent to Bill. I'm not sure that where it came from, how it may have been sent to him.
Okay.
He may have corresponded with Rich Oberfield, whoever Rich Oberfield is.
All right. Was it the practice in your department to send information out to any medical organization wherever there was anything that might be construed as favorable to chiropractic, to send them information about the cult of chiropractic?
Usually if they asked for it, we'd send it to them.
Did you ever send it when they didn't ask for it?
I wouldn't say we never did, but that was not common practice.
All right. Can you tell me why, was it Mr. Holman that was the lawyer working for the Judicial Council?
Yes.
Can you tell me why you had a discussion with him about including the 1966 statement in the Judicial Council opinions and reports?
Yes, he was director of the Department of Medical Ethics at the AMA at that time. He was secretary to the Judicial Council. And he literally put together, periodically, opinions and reports, the principles of medical ethics. he was responsible for its publication under the supervision of the Judicial Council, and it reflected the opinions of the Judicial Council and actions taken by the AMA Board.
All right. Was it a concern of yours that medical physicians were voluntarily associating professionally with chiropractors prior to 1966?
Was it a concern of mine?
Yes.
No.
Was it a concern of the Committee on Quackery?
I don't know. Prior to 1966? I came there in 1965.
Yes.
I don't know what their concerns were prior to 1966.
Can you tell me why you wanted the Judicial Council opinions and reports to reflect that it was unethical to voluntarily associate professionally with chiropractors?
Certainly, I thought we explained that earlier this morning, but perhaps it slipped your mind or something we'll try again, okay?
Okay, well, if you think you did, let me tell you what I'm puzzled by.
All right?
If medical physicians weren't voluntarily associating professionally with chiropractors, why did you have to make it unethical to do so?
I'll object to the
Does that make any sense to you?
No.
I'll object to the form of the question.
All right.
It assumes that the tail is wagging the dog.
All right,
That is, that somebody makes something unethical.
all right. Did you believe that medical physicians were voluntarily associating professionally with chiropractors?
No.
Can you tell me what you believed was to be gained by being more specific in the ethics pronouncements of the AMA?
I again say, I told you this morning, and I'll tell you again. I said the AMA needed something that was usable by our department and others in the AMA that would define chiropractic in such a way that we could attempt to find allies who felt the same way that we did, because the language, the pre-existing language, was only cultists, not defined at all. We wanted a specific policy statement on chiropractic. When I say we, I'm talking about the Committee on Quackery. I'm talking about Mr. Bert Howard, Dr. Bert Howard, who was the Executive Vice President of the AMA. I'm talking about some members of the Board of Trustees.
Did Dr. Salmons, do you know?
I don't think Dr. Salmons was there.
All right.
Dr. Salmons was in Texas at that time.
All right. Was Dr. Salmons there at any time while you were?
Yes.
Did you ever have any talks with him about the Committee on Quackery?
Well, I'm sure I did.
Did you ever tell him that the purpose of the Committee on Quackery was to contain and eliminate chiropractic?
I certainly did not. I
Did you?
told him it was to contain and eliminate chiropractic as a recognized health care service.
All right. And you have no doubt but that he understood that was your
There
purpose?
is absolutely no doubt.
All right.
We have visited at length.
All right. Now, I understand what you just said about the reason why you wanted the statement of the House of Delegates, okay? You wanted a specific pronouncement that chiropractic was a cult, okay? Now, maybe it's the
I
same...
wanted more than that.
All right.
You want me to tell you what more we wanted? We wanted a platform to let the medical profession and the world know what the United States Supreme Court had held in the England case.
All right.
Okay?
Right.
That was a perfectly good reason in my judgment.
Right. Did the United States Supreme Court say...
Affirmed.
Did they say that it was a cult?
They did not say it was a cult. They said that if chiropractors want to be licensed, they should be required to take to have the same training in materia medica and surgery as doctors of medicine.
Right. Now let me...
In order to be a recognized health care.
Now let me one step removed from that.
Right?
You had your statement. The House of Delegates adopted it.
Right.
Why did you want it inserted into the Judicial Council opinions and reports?
This made it accessible to all of the state, county, and major medical societies in a form that they could in turn adopt or not as they see fit. They could use or not use as they see fit. They had nothing up till that time. This also informed every physician who was a member of the AMA or anybody who got opinions and reports, the principles of medical ethics, exactly what the AMA's position is. Take it or leave it, here it is. This is the AMA's position.
And that position was not only that chiropractic was a cult, but it was unethical to voluntarily associate professionally with a chiropractor.
That was in the unethical part of association with a cultist existed prior to the statement in 1966.
All right. Let me hand you what's previously been identified as Plaintiff's Exhibit 550. And can you tell me, were you responsible for having this letter of Dr. Thompson sent to 56 medical specialty boards? Attached to it is Plaintiff's Exhibit 550A.
I was not responsible for this, but I condoned it.
You condoned it?
I approved it.
Okay. Whose act did you approve?
Mr. Youngerman's.
Okay. And was it your understanding that this was to inform these medical specialty boards and associations that it was unethical to voluntarily associate professionally with a chiropractor?
Among other things, yes. Among what the full statement is in the letter.
All right. To your knowledge, was this the position of the American Medical Association up to and including the time you left the American Medical Association?
When you say this, you're talking about that which is reflected in...
In the 550A.
Excuse me.
Repeat the question, please.
Question, to your knowledge, was this the position of the American Medical Association up to and including the time you left the American Medical Association?
This verbatim statement was not contained in later editions of the publication opinions and reports, but the essence of this statement was maintained, I believe, as long as I was at the AMA.
And it became more specific with regard to chiropractic.
The part that became specific regarding chiropractic was the chiropractic policy statement. This was a part of the principles of medical ethics. So was the chiropractic statement.
All right. And is Plaintiff's Exhibit 1376 the statement of policy on chiropractic that was drafted by the Committee on Quackery and adopted by the House of Delegates?
In this form, I would have to say no.
Why is it? Because of the introduction statement?
Right.
Okay. The statement of policy, though, appearing before the introduction on AMA Production 91859, is that the statement that was adopted by the House of Delegates? Do you know?
Does anybody have a copy of
All right, well, if you don't know, we'll, it either is or isn't.
Well, I'm
Yes.
assuming it is. No, I'll take 5 minutes and read it if that's what you want.
No,
Mr.
that's not
McCain.
necessary. I don't want to delay.
I don't. You throw me things with an introduction that it does, and ask me if that's a part of the policy statement.
I
And
am-
of course, it is not.
All right. You knew the North American Academy of Manipulative Medicine, didn't you?
I
Mr.
know
Taylor?
about it.
And did the Committee on Quackery attend its meeting in San Francisco?
No, sir.
Did Dr. Thompson attend the meeting?
As an individual,
Okay. Did he brief the Committee on Quackery regarding it?
yes.
Did he tell the committee that he believed that the manipulative techniques utilized by those medical physicians were identical to maneuvers used by chiropractors?
I'm not sure that he used that verbiage, but
All right. Who made up the minutes of the Committee on Quackery?
may I see, though, if you're talking about the minutes you have in front of you, I'd like to see who.
Yes.
It says who is secretary.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 182, and I'm referring to the first sentence in the second paragraph.
Mr. Youngerman. made
Mr.
up.
Youngerman did. Okay. Were you present at that
Yes.
particular meeting?
Yes. He's listed as the secretary, and the secretary puts together the minutes.
All right. Did you meet with Marv Ryder of the Blue Shield Association of America?
Yes.
Did Marv Ryder tell you that they were pursuing avenues to exclude coverage, Blue Shield coverage for chiropractic care?
He said they were considering rewriting that section of the blue guidelines that concerned, well, for the sake of a better word, independent practitioners, such as chiropractic.
Such as chiropractic?
He may have said that, but that's what he meant.
All right. Did you encourage him to do that?
I said, fine. But if I can help, he said, give me every bit of information you have, which I gave.
Well, excuse me. Did you have a physical meeting with him?
Sir, I had lunch with him,
At whose
At his
invitation? At his invitation?
and he picked up the check.
All right. And did he know that you were a member, or excuse me, that you were secretary to a committee?
I wasn't secretary.
Excuse me, that part of your function was to contain and eliminate chiropractic
As a recognized health care service.
as a recognized health care service?
Oh, objection. Your question asks, did he know?
Yeah. Did he know?
Did he know what I did?
Yes.
He knew I worked at the EMA and that I suspect that he knew that I was, as director of the Department of Investigation, had some hand in what the EMA was trying to do to protect the public
Involving chiropractic.
involving chiropractic.
Did you ever have any discussion with him that it
Certainly.
was your goal to eliminate chiropractic as a recognized health care service?
Well, he had a copy of the policy statement, and I don't know, and lots of other things where those words were used. I don't know whether I specifically used those in conversations with him.
Okay, he had copies of something where those words were used?
He had everything I could find.
All right.
I just had Bill I said, dig up everything you can find and send it to Mr. Ryder at Blue Shield.
All right. Let's break for lunch.
I'll go off the record now at 12:52.
12:51.
12:51 approximately. We're back on the record now at 2:16.
Mr. Taylor, I hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 307B, which is a letter from Dr. Hoffman to the editor of the Carroll County Georgian, dated March 21, 1973. And I notice it has a blind copy to you. Do you know why Dr. Hoffman included you with a blind copy?
No, I don't, but I was very pleased that he did.
All right. Do you know the identities of the other individuals that are listed there for blind copies?
I can't remember who any one of them was. I think Tom Sawyer was in the field service. Jim Moffett, I don't know. Dr. Aston, I don't know.
All right.
I don't remember anyway.
All right. During the course of your service with the AMA, assisting the Committee on Quackery, was it brought to your attention that there were medical physician studies indicating that chiropractors may be more efficient than medical physicians in workman's compensation cases?
Objection to form and foundation.
Answer anyway, please.
There were 2 or 3 of those studies brought to my attention, and the validity of them was questioned severely.
All right. Do you know, were the studies by medical physicians?
I can't remember whether they were or weren't. I'd like to quote to you what 2 chairmen of 2 state workmen's compensation boards, however, told me.
Well, why don't you wait to do that, and why don't I show you the studies that I'm going to refer you
Right.
to, and see if you recall these studies.
Right.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 193, a study of time loss back claims, Workmen's Compensation Board, State of Oregon, with the signature of Roland A. Martin, M.D., Medical Director, Workmen's Compensation Board. Did you see that study on or about the time it was released?
Is there a date or a time on it when it was released? March 1971. I'm sure I have seen it.
All
Yes.
right. I direct your attention to page 3, the second and third full paragraph, where comparisons are made between the time loss by patients under the care of a chiropractor and the time lost by patients under the care of a medical physician, in which the diagnosis seemed comparable. The second and third paragraphs, do you recall seeing those results?
I don't recall them specifically, but I'm sure I did at the time. You're talking about 16 years ago.
Okay.
now.
Why are you sure you did at the time?
I would have read it when it came across my desk.
All right. Was that troublesome to you that there was a medical physician reporting that chiropractors appeared to be more efficient than medical physicians in comparable workman's compensation cases?
Check the form, word troublesome, and also is a misstatement of the article, insofar as you talk about comparable efficiency.
Answer the question, please.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Okay. Don't bother going back. Did it trouble you, Mr. Taylor, that a medical physician had issued a report that appears to indicate that in workman's compensation cases having comparable diagnoses, chiropractors were more efficient than medical physicians in getting the workers back to work?
Same objection.
It did not trouble me. It concerned me that the figures themselves concerned me. And if I remember correctly at that time, I talked to Dr. Stevens about it and others, and they thought that probably these were strains and sprains that the chiropractors saw, and maybe there were some other things that they missed, and the MD cut it off.
I see. And
That was the explanation made to me. Now, I'm not sure that it was Dave Stevens who did it. Somebody did.
All right.
Who was knowledgeable.
did you discuss the cost to the state of workers being off the job twice as long who had been under the care of medical physicians as those workers that had been under the care of the chiropractors?
Well,
And the lack of foundation.
I'm sure I would have been concerned about the cost to the state, but I was far more concerned about whether the patient might have been misdiagnosed or without diagnosis in the case of the chiropractor, and properly diagnosed in the case of the MD, which would result in the possibility of harm for the 82% who were treated by the chiropractors and went back to work in a week, and the 41% of those who had proper diagnosis and went back to work in 1 week would not have faced the same hazard.
Right. Did you discuss the possibility that the ability of the chiropractor to consult with a medical physician may have eliminated that problem of misdiagnosis that you're talking about?
I have no reason to believe that I would have raised that point.
Okay. It was unethical for a medical physician to consult with a chiropractor, was it not?
Unethical by whose standards?
By the American Medical Association standards.
The AMA can say that this is unethical and this is ethical from here till the end of time. That doesn't make it necessarily unethical or make it ethical.
Do you know of any medical physician at any time in your entire life who wanted to be branded as unethical by his major national medical organization?
Well, I would suggest to you that a large percentage of the physicians who are practicing today are not members of the AMA.
Do you know of many medical physicians who were practicing when you were with the AMA that weren't on a hospital medical staff?
I probably knew some who were
Okay,
not.
some?
Yes.
Do most medical physicians have hospital staff affiliations?
Yes.
All right. And did you take steps to see that the principles of medical ethics were incorporated into the into the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Hospitals accreditation manual?
No.
No foundation.
Do you know if they were?
If they were what?
Do you know if the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Hospitals required medical staffs to have ethics committees?
I have no idea what the Joint Commission's guidelines or requirements are.
All right. I hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 194. Were you ever made aware of this study by medical physician Dr. C. Richard Wolf, study of workmen's compensation cases in California?
I don't believe I ever saw this before in my life.
Hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 192. It's a report from Lancet comparing the effectiveness of physician and chiropractic care, entitled Manipulating the Patient, from the Lancet, June 29th, 1974. Did you ever see that, Mr. Taylor?
I have no recollection of having ever seen this report.
Were you ever told that a study was done at the University of Utah College of Medicine?
Yes.
Well, tell us what you know about that study.
I don't remember what I know about it. You know, you're talking about 12, 15 years ago. I'm sorry, I don't know what it was. There was a study done at Utah.
Did it involve chiropractic?
I don't remember.
All right.
If you have the study, I'll be glad to take a look at it.
Well, I represent to you that that's the study.
Your deviousness intrigues me, Mr. McAndrews.
Sorry, I try not to be devious.
I still have no recollection of having seen this study.
All right, that's fine. Were you ever told that the studies that were being done on workman's compensation showed that the chiropractor was at least as efficient as the medical physician in getting patients back to work?
Objection to form.
Was I ever told that?
Yes.
I'm sure I was never told that.
Okay. Did you ever do any search to determine if there were any studies showing the comparable efficiency or the relative efficiency of medical physician care and chiropractic care?
No. I would like to comment, however, if I may. In the audience in two places in which I was making appearances was the chairman of the board of the chairman of the Workmen's Compensation Commission in the state of Nevada and the state of Idaho.
Is this hearsay?
This is not hearsay. They were in the audience directly speaking to me.
Well, I'm going to object to your continuing your answer. If your counsel wants you to override my objection, I don't know if it's responsive to my question. Is it responsive to any question that's been asked of you?
It's responsive to what chiropractors were doing under workmen's compensation. Isn't that what we're talking about?
No, I was asking you about the studies between the efficiency of chiropractors and medical physicians.
These happen, the two gentlemen to whom I'm referring happen to be chairman of the Workmen's Compensation Commissions in these two states.
Were there studies?
They knew what the figures show. Now,
Well,
are those studies? What do
If you
those
can
show?
produce the studies, I'll be happy to consider them. Otherwise, I'd just as soon you wait until your counsel asks you the question. All right? Hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 184 and ask you if you have ever seen this report by medical physician Jacob L. Rudd that appeared entitled Medical Aspects of Manipulation Therapy, that appeared in Military Medicine in September 1967.
Yes, I think I have seen this.
Were you informed? Did you read the study when you?
Oh, I probably did in 1967.
All right.
That's just 20 years ago.
Do you recall that in studies done by Dr. Rudd, patients got relief in 25 to 50% of the case from spinal manipulative therapy?
Objection to form and foundation.
Studies done by Dr. Rudd, or is this retrospective?
A study done. There you go. Well, it says in the second column on page 733, Cruzen et al. State, back manipulation is regarded as controversial and its value has been questioned by many physicians. However, the method has regained favor and controlled studies performed lately in proved back cases of discogenic diseases as well as in certain other forms of low back pain have shown improvement in 25 to 50% of the cases. Do you remember that?
I wouldn't dispute that at all. You're talking about manipulative therapy. I have said numerous times today that many orthopedic surgeons and others use manipulative therapy.
Okay. And do you recall on page 738, Dr. Rudd saying, the lack of definite proof of cause or the lesion has impeded further work in this field, yet gaps in knowledge regarding the causes of rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, arterial sclerosis, cancer, mental illness, chronic simple glaucoma, and a host of other conditions have not prevented reasonable medical efforts in the treatment of these unknowns. While we are searching for definite proof, more and more patients are lost to medicine when they find relief from pain and discomfort in the ministrations of non-medical practitioners. Do you recall that?
No, I don't
Objection to
recall, really.
form.
All right.
No.
What's the question?
Do you disagree with what Dr. Rudd says in the last column there in the lower part of it?
That you just read?
What I just read.
Objection to form.
I think Dr. Rudd has said in subsequent papers, and I'm not sure about what he says it in this one. If we had time, I'd read it and find out that there is a place in medicine for manual manipulation of the spine, of the spinal column, the back, and that it has been done successfully by many, many doctors, including Dr. Rudd. But I think he always comes to the conclusion, the same conclusion that I have suggested to you several times today, that manipulative therapy is useful when indicated and after a proper diagnosis and in the hands of a person who is trained to perform such manipulative therapy.
I don't think this is on the record. Have you ever have you ever taken any healthcare classes?
Have I?
Yes.
No, I don't. I've never enrolled in
Have
it.
you ever taken any courses in anatomy,
No,
physiology?
no.
Hey, so
I am not a physician.
I know you're not a physician, but I take it you have acquired knowledge then from medical physicians to support your statements. Is that correct?
I have acquired all the knowledge that I have on chiropractic or anything else that concerns medicine in the years from 1965 to 1980 when I retired. First 11 years at the AMA, the last nearly 5 at the American Academy of Pediatrics. I can think of no better places in the world for me to be educated on anything that I wanted to know than those two organizations.
All right. Did you participate in creating the 1974 unit plan for the Committee on Quackery?
I was a man named Roger Balfe, I believe,
Could you spell that, please?
B-A-L-F-E, conducted that, whatever it was called. I spent some time with him. He asked what our department did, what the Committee on Quackery did, how much time we spent on what, all that sort of thing. It's a long time ago. I can't remember what the survey, what else it included.
What was Roger Belf? Was he a medical physician?
No,
Was he a lawyer?
no.
What was his position with the AMA?
Specifically, I don't know.
Was this the first contact he'd had, to your knowledge, with the Committee on Quackery?
I don't think he'd ever had any contact with them, and I don't think he even had at this time. He had contact with me.
Okay, was he drafting a unit plan for the Committee on Quackery?
He was drafting unit plans for the whole AMA,
All right.
if I remember correctly.
Did you discuss with him that at the time the unit plan was being developed, the security of the Committee on Quackery had been compromised through the publication of many of your internal documents?
I don't remember whether I did or not. I can't, the time span, I can't remember when the thefts occurred and when Trevor's alleged book occurred, was written. I don't have any of those dates. I can't put them in chronology.
Well, you left the AM in 1975. How long before that were your documents compromised?
How would I know?
You don't know? Okay, when did you first find out about it? How long before you left the AMA did you find out that your documents had been compromised?
Not very long, within the last 6 months.
Within the last 6 months? All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 190 is a unit plan, and on page 6 of it, under activity number 2, chiropractic schools and accreditation, it states, chiropractic has realized the deficiencies in its educational institutions and in recent years has made intense efforts to add instructors with graduate degrees to staff, install better laboratory equipment, etc. Was that your understanding of what the chiropractors were trying to do in their colleges at that time?
I have no idea what Bruce Balf wrote, unless you let me read it.
All right.
I don't know, you have a habit of reading things out of context.
All right. Well, I'll try not to do that.
He's talking only about activity anyway, and he's not talking about accomplishments.
You mean they hadn't yet accomplished the improvement in their schools? They were just making intense efforts to do so?
Right.
And was the AMA opposed to that?
I don't think the AMA was opposed to anything they wanted to do. As long, what the AMA opposed was, as long as they continued to build their house on quicksand, on the basic premise of all of chiropractic,
All right. Now,
it would fall in anyway.
you said that Bruce Balfe made up the unit plan, is that correct?
He was the man who interviewed me, and I believe he put the unit plan together.
Okay. Here's Plaintiff's Exhibit 1394. It appears to be a communication from you to Bruce Balfe saying attached is the unit plan for the AMA Committee on Quackery. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether or not you might have prepared the unit plan?
I prepared a draft of the unit plan, which he asked for from every department head.
All right. Is that the draft of the unit plan that you prepared?
It appears to be.
All right. Would you go over to the first page of writing of the unit plan draft that appears to be what you prepared? The last paragraph on that page, Mr. Taylor. It states, at the state level, continued assistance also must be given state medical societies and others in chiropractic's ever-increasing pressure for involvement in comprehensive health planning, PSRO, and HMO programs, demands for hospital privileges, and such other areas as X-ray and pathology laboratory services, and mandatory inclusion in all health insurance coverage. Did you write that?
I'm sure I did.
Okay. And did you consider that to be the goal of the Committee on Quackery?
One of the goals of the Committee on Quackery.
And that was at least that goal as of the time you submitted this to the Mr. Balfe, is that correct?
His name is pronounced Balf, yes.
Balfe. And forgive me, you have the only front sheet there. I don't have a copy of it. To whom did you submit that report?
It says to Bruce E. Balf, Director of Planning.
Through whom?
Bernard D. Hirsch, General Counsel.
Did Mr. Hirsch ever question any of your goals that you set out in the unit plan?
As far as I remember, he never said a word about it.
All right. Now, you said Mr. Balf asked all department heads to submit a unit plan. Is that
I
correct?
said that was my understanding.
All right. Were you the department head of the Committee on Quackery?
No, sir. There isn't any such thing as a department of the Committee on Quackery. I was the head of the Department of Investigation.
And was the Committee on Quackery a part of the Department of Investigation?
No, it was not. The Committee on Quackery was a committee of the American Medical Association and was staffed by a member of the staff of the Department of Investigation.
All right. Would you go to the top of page 2, please? In that first paragraph, you talk about public statements by various groups. Do you see that? Here, I hope I'm not on the...
Information-based?
No, it's page 2. You have, let's see. Maybe we're on the same...
Your pages are mixed up, apparently.
Yes, might be. There's page 2, and in the first paragraph, you see it says there's all these statements by these various groups?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It says the committee and staff worked to help produce these statements. Is that true?
The committee supplied information to these organizations.
All right. Is that what you meant when you said the committee and staff worked to help produce these statements?
What else could I have meant?
Well, did you write any of them?
Of course not. These are major national organizations.
And down in the second paragraph from the bottom on page 2, it says the committee has represented the AMA in hearings before the U.S. Office of Education and its advisory groups in opposing the intense drive by chiropractic to gain accreditation of its schools. I think you've already testified that the AMA was opposed to an accreditation agency for chiropractic schools. Is that correct?
That is correct, because it would destroy the integrity of the accreditation of colleges and universities and other things that are, other agencies that are accredited by the Office of Education. And incidentally, I would like to interject, if I may, at this point, how some of the chiropractic schools got their accreditation. Congress passed a law under which there was a loophole put in it so that Negro schools, the black schools in the United States, could be accredited so that they could receive federal funds. Some of the chiropractic schools crawled through that loophole that Congress had left with the Office of Education. No recourse.
And did you promptly report that to the Office of Education?
As soon as I discovered what was happening, I did.
And what did the Office of Education do?
Made every effort it could to close the loophole.
Did it succeed?
No, it did not.
Mr. Taylor, did you understand that chiropractic was licensed by the various states?
Certainly.
Did you understand that chiropractic was approved for reimbursement by the Congress of the United States under Medicare?
Under certain conditions.
Under certain conditions?
Yes.
Realizing that, did anyone caution you at any time that the program to contain and eliminate chiropractic as a recognized health care provider may have may be improper?
No.
No one at any time told you that?
No person at any time told me that.
Right. Did which governmental agency co-sponsored the first and second Quackery Congresses?
The Food and Drug Administration.
Did they refuse to sponsor the third National Quackery Congress?
Yes.
Did they tell you it was because of your emphasis on chiropractic?
They did not.
Did they question the inclusion of chiropractic as the target of the AMA?
They did not.
Did they mention that chiropractic was a state problem since it was a licensed profession?
They certainly did.
Yeah. Tell us the circumstances under which they told you that.
I told Dr. Goddard, whomever it was, with whom I was discussing the sponsorship of the Congress on Health Quackery, that we intended to have chiropractic as one of the areas that would be covered in an invited speaker. And the answer that you gave was absolutely correct. The Food and Drug Administration said the chiropractic is a state problem, except for the device control bill law, which they exercised very liberally with the chiropractors. It was a rare month that there wasn't a chiropractic device of one kind or another seized by the Food and Drug Administration. But since it was licensed at the state, they, the Food and Drug Administration, a federal government agency, could not cooperate. They regretted they could not. They would like to have been there.
Is the bottom line is they refused to co-sponsor the Third National Congress?
Refused is a rugged word.
Well, did they?
They declined and suggested who might replace them and asked to attend.
All right. Would you go?
Did.
Okay. Would you go over to page 8 of the unit plan? Down under activity number 5, can you see that?
Yes.
Combating chiropractic demands for medical services.
Yes, I see.
Okay, you say, in addition to the rejected federal demand that chiropractors be permitted to perform physical examinations for interstate truck drivers, chiropractic has launched a strong campaign for medical services, period. An example is chiropractic's present drive for chiropractors to be given the opportunity to treat their patients in hospitals. Did you write that?
Yes.
Did you understand that chiropractic at the time this was written had a present drive to be given the opportunity to treat their patients in hospitals?
Objection to form and foundation.
And not only did I understand it, it was obvious.
On what facts do you base that statement, that it was obvious?
Inquiries that were coming to us.
Where were the inquiries coming from?
Everywhere.
There were
United States.
quite a few of them?
Yes.
Chiropractors were applying to hospitals for medical services?
For staff privileges in the hospital.
Okay, were they applying for pathology and x-ray assistance? Do you know?
I thought you were talking about hospital staff privileges in this paragraph, right?
All right. I'm sorry.
Now, if you want to go to another area, we'll go to another area.
All right.
You tell me what you want me to discuss.
No, you're very correct. Here it talks about chiropractors were trying to treat their patients in hospitals, okay? Did the AMA oppose that?
The AMA certainly would not endorse it, but the AMA could not control it. Hospital staff privileges are controlled by many areas other than the AMA. All the AMA can do is participate in trying to maintain standards for hospital care. State laws govern in many cases. Beneath state laws are the hospital regulations, and rules and regulations and guidelines. The hospital is an entity unto itself and can do basically what it wants to do as long as it remains within the confines of the law. There were court cases that held neither a public nor a private hospital was required to grant staff privileges to one who did not practice a scientific type of medicine, and this included chiropractic. I am referring to Oklahoma in the Booth case. I'm referring to the state of Iowa, where chiropractors wanted, this antedates even my time when I had any knowledge of anything medical. But there was a case in which the chiropractor tried to get staff privileges at a public hospital, and that was denied.
Did you, were you informed that after the passage of the Medicare Act incorporating chiropractic for the first time, that the American Hospital Association became concerned that that might open up hospital-based HMOs to chiropractors?
I had no idea what that hospital association. I never discussed it with them. Didn't concern myself with them. Didn't know there were enough hospital-based HMOs to make any difference anyway.
Okay. Did you ask the legal department at the American Medical Association shortly after chiropractors were included in Medicare to publish a lawyer's opinion entitled "The Right and Duty of Hospitals to Exclude Chiropractors"?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
If we haven't already made it crystal clear why, I'll tell you again. We were having a lot of inquiry as to the rights and obligations of hospitals. I talked to Mr. Hurst, the general counsel, who brought Mr. Richard Bergen, who was head of the legal research department, in on the conversation, and it was decided that his department would do a thorough research job on, job is a bad word, would thoroughly research the situation and find out if there was under any circumstances under which a hospital was required to grant staff privilege to a chiropractor. And the result of that research was the article you just designated.
Why did you have it published in JAMA?
So that all physicians would know it and all the hospitals would know it.
Why did you want physicians to know it?
Because they were facing the problems. Physicians were on hospital boards and everything else.
Well,
Look, we work for the medical profession. The AMA is an organization of physicians. Are we supposed to hide this information under a basket? We want them to know what their rights and privileges are.
was it because you wanted them to reject chiropractors' efforts to get into hospitals?
If that was their opinion.
Earlier today I talked to you about a speech. I think you mentioned a speech you gave where a chiropractor, you believe it was a chiropractor, interrupted from the back.
Right.
And then I asked you if a decision was made that staff members would not appear on such shows in the future, and I think you said that that wasn't a decision that was made.
That's right.
Okay, let me show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 240, the Committee on Quackery minutes from May 13, 1966, indicating that you were present at the meeting. Over on page 5, under D, and I'm going to let you read it because I don't want to take it out of context. Does that reflect the results of the speech we were talking about, or is that a different speech?
Well, the history of this is one of those things that's almost as, well...
Well, just read it and then let me have an answer to my question.
Let me try to answer your question.
All right.
Joe Pine had a talk show in Los Angeles that was one of the best viewed, listened to, best heard, had the best audience of any talk show on the West Coast. Several physicians had appeared on his show. The director of our communications department asked me would I appear on Joe Pine's show. And I said, I don't know. I would like some ground rules made. So the director called me. And I said, are you coming to Chicago in the near future? And he said, yes. I said, I'd like to talk to you. I said, if you're going to load the audience, I won't be there. I said, you've got to assure me that you're not going to load this audience with a bunch of chiropractors. And he gave me that assurance. So I went on Joe Pine's show. And not only was the audience loaded with chiropractors, I discovered that Joe Pine formerly ran the Arizona Chiropractic Association. I had a great time on that show.
Did you, were you disparaging of chiropractors?
I certainly was. Just the same as I would have been, I don't care what the audience was or who was there.
Okay, did you happen to call chiropractors killers in that?
No, I certainly didn't.
Have you ever?
No, not to my knowledge, except that I know chiropractors have done things that have resulted in people's deaths.
Yes. All right. Would you continue reading that? Was a decision made that you would no longer appear on any TV or talk shows?
Nope. That decision never was made.
All right. Let me...
You show me where it says that.
Well, I'm not certain it does say that.
It does not say that.
It
Nobody ever
says-
told me that I shouldn't appear on anything.
Mr. Taylor said staff members would not appear on such shows in the future.
Well, boy, there aren't any such shows as his.
Okay, the committee approved informally Mr. Taylor's speech on chiropractic to the Second National Conference on Health Education of the Public. Is that, there are no more such shows? By such shows you meant?
Run by ex-chiropractic employees.
All right. Right. In fact, did you develop a policy of the committee that no one would ever debate a chiropractor again?
We thought, by we, I'm talking about the members of the committee and the staff, for a physician to appear publicly, whether it's radio, television, or on a platform, with a chiropractor, was disparaging to the physician and giving undue credit to a person who didn't know how to practice medicine.
All right. Well, how about not a medical physician, but you, a lawyer, a trained lawyer? Was a decision made that you would not debate chiropractors?
I made the decision myself.
All right. Okay.
I'll debate anybody, but I wouldn't debate a chiropractor,
All right. Now,
except a chiropractor.
you published, the Committee on Quackery published a document denominating chiropractic degrees as spurious, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. And did someone from the Office of Education contact you and tell you that a mistake had been made?
No.
At no time?
No. Not from the Office of Education.
A consultant to the Office of Education that had worked on that book did he not?
It was somebody completely outside government, and I'm not sure about whether it was a chiropractor himself who first called it to our attention. We went back to the Office of Education, and in the book they had sent us was the designation of chiropractic as a spurious degree. In retrospect, they said that should not have been included in that portion of the book. They never denied that chiropractic was not a legitimate degree, but because at that time there was no accrediting agency for any, there was no accredited for chiropractic schools, there was no accredited chiropractic school in the United States.
Mr.
If I
Taylor,
remember correctly.
when did that occur?
I don't know.
Was that back in 1966 that it was pointed out to you that a mistake had been made in the book?
Yes. Well, it was a long time ago. I know.
Well,
While Bob was handling the committee.
Exhibit 240, dated May 13, 1966, on page 6, under subparagraph E, states, it was pointed out that this was the first time any authoritative publication included a mention that chiropractic degrees were considered to be spurious. Is that correct? So was it in 1966?
I would assume so.
Okay. How soon after that were you told a mistake had been made?
I'm not sure that they told me a mistake had been made. They said it should not have been on that page. But
All right.
I don't believe they intended to tell me that chiropractic degrees were legitimate.
No, but they told you that it shouldn't have been included on the page of
that
spurious degrees.
They did not tell me that.
What did they tell
They
you?
told me that it should not have been included on that page. I said, do you recognize chiropractic degrees? And they said, no, there are no chiropractic schools that are accredited.
Well, is it a fact that up until the date you left the AMA, 9 years later, is that 1966 to 1975, you continued to send out pamphlets stating that HEW considered the chiropractic degree to be spurious?
We sure did not. We corrected it immediately and withheld all the pamphlets we could find. I am the first to admit if an error has been made by somebody who works for me, and Mr. Youngerman made the error. Okay?
Okay. Did you
We withdrew everything we could find that had that word in it.
Did you send out a correction in the
We
American Medical News or in any other manner to tell the recipients that a mistake had been made?
No.
Did chiropractic get an accreditation agency?
I don't know.
Do you know if the Office of Education ever certified a chiropractic college accreditation agency?
No, I don't know.
Mr. Taylor, earlier today we were talking about the HEW study. Do you recall that?
I certainly do.
Now, you knew Dr. Sam Sherman, right?
Yes.
And was he with Highback?
Well, at one time he was.
And was he also a member of the AMA?
Yes.
Was he on some AMA council?
I think he's a member of the Legislative Committee.
A member of the Legislative Committee?
I said I think he was.
All right. Now, you understood that Congress had asked for an unbiased study of chiropractic as a prelude to determining whether or not they should include it in Medicare. Is that
Right.
correct? All right. Now, let me hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 1414. Did you receive a copy of that from Dr. Sherman?
I'm sure I did because it has the department receipt stamped on it.
All right. Now, HIVAC is Health Insurance Benefits Advisory Council, is it not?
Yes.
And that is to HEW?
That's to the Congress.
That's to the Congress.
Do you want me to tell you what Highback is?
Yes, I'd appreciate it.
When the Medicare law was passed by the Congress, it wanted an oversight committee. That is what the Health Insurance Benefits Advisory Council is an oversight committee for Congress, not for HEW, not for anybody else, but for Congress. Okay?
All right. Now, I notice on Plaintiff's Exhibit 1414, Dr. Sherman tells you there was complete acceptance of the concept of preparing the decision on the basis of lack of scientific merit. Now, had the study already occurred?
I'm reasonably sure that it had not occurred at the time this letter was written by Dr. Sherman.
Well, do you know how Dr. Sherman knew how on what basis the decision was to be prepared?
I haven't any idea what that sentence means because the next sentence almost refute the sentence you're reading.
All right, and then at the bottom it says, I am hopeful our attempts to exclude chiropractors in the future will be successful. I can, at this time, give you the complete backing of the HIVAC group. Was that a government group?
That was a congressional group.
That was a congressional group. And that group was in touch with Miss Pearl Bierman of the Public Health Service. Is that correct?
I don't know. That's what the letter says.
Okay. Was HIVAC a group of medical physicians, do you know?
I don't think there was another medical physician on it besides Sam Sherman.
And he was the AMA representative
No,
on it?
sir.
Okay, but you had
We had no control over membership on HIVAC. By we, I mean the American Medical Association.
Well, except that Dr. Sherman was head of the Council on Legislation of the
I
American
don't know whether he
Medical
was head of the Council on Legislation. I said I thought he was a member,
You thought he was a member, all right.
but I don't know how he became appointed to HIVAC.
All right, well, why did you elect to deal with Dr. Sherman on the issue of an independent study that Congress wanted an outside group to perform?
Again, you have read part of the letter, and you're including the rest of the letter. I had been admitted, as I told you this morning, negotiating with the Stanford Research Institute to make a national study of chiropractic education and its ability to provide health care. We had spent a little money, very little, on there trying to set up a protocol for such a study. There, it became obvious, at least in information supplied me by I don't know whom, from HEW. That's a broad, I admit, thousands of people. The one who informed me, I don't know, that there was the probability that HEW was going to make a study of chiropractic under the aegis of an order from Congress. And how this letter came about, I don't know.
All right. Did you believe that it was important that the AMA hand not show in the HEW study?
I don't think the AMA hand ever did show in the HEW study. I don't think there was ever any. We almost broke our back to get permission to testify, and were denied.
All right. Now, I hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 221. It's a letter from you to Bernie Hirsch, dated June 5, 1968, headed confidential. And the second paragraph says, working through Samuel R. Sherman, M.D., and the HIVAC Committee, this department shortly thereafter supplied to Social Security Administration officials at their request a study outline insofar as chiropractic is concerned. This was on a confidential basis without any AMA involvement. Second paragraph, what did you mean without any AMA involvement if you in fact prepared the outline?
I'm not sure I can answer the question. I can tell you what I think was the situation. Sam Sherman was a very highly qualified member of the Legislative Committee of the AMA. Bernie Harrison was the staff man for the Legislative Committee. I believe between Bernie and myself we prepared an outline that in essence said the study had to be objective, or it would be worthless, that it couldn't be loaded either with pro or anti-AMA, pro or anti-chiropractors, that this study ought to be made up of people beyond reproach, and that of critical importance was the validity of the chiropractic principle. The disease is caused by a spinal subluxation and cured by spinal adjustment. And whether there was any validity at all to the chiropractic, this hypothesis on which chiropractic was and is based as far as I know. And that was the sort of an outline that we gave. Bernie and I decided upon to give to Sam Sherman.
Well, that's fine. What I want to know is, what do you mean that the outline was given, that you prepared, was given to them on a confidential basis without any AMA involvement?
Oh, I believe whoever handled it, and I think it was Bernie Harrison, and I certainly do not want to involve Bernie incorrectly. This was a long time ago. He was much closer to Sam Sherman than I was. I hardly knew Sam Sherman. But Dr. Sherman was highly regarded by everybody, and so was Bernie Harrison. And Bernie said that he would see to it that, if I remember correctly, that this got into Dr. Sherman's hands on a confidential basis, and that he would be sure that there was no AMA involvement.
You didn't want the Congress or HEW to know that the AMA had prepared the study outline, is that correct?
We're talking about an outline going to Highback.
This states that shortly thereafter, this department supplied to Social Security Administration officials. Is that Highback?
No. Well, it might be.
That's HEW, isn't it?
Social Security?
Yes.
At that time, I don't know.
All right, well, let's move on.
Okay.
Did you know who Dr. Donald Duncan was?
Yes.
Who was he?
Professor at the University of Texas Medical School, I believe.
Had he been a social friend of Dr. Blasingame, the Executive Vice President of the AMA, to your knowledge?
I found out later that they had, I don't know whether a social friend is the correct terminology, but that they knew each other.
Okay, was he appointed head of the HEW expert review panel,
Yes.
do you know? Did you take steps to contact Dr. Duncan?
Did I?
Yes.
I did not.
Did the Committee on Quackery?
No.
Let me show you Plaintiff's Exhibit 220. Do you know who C. Lincoln Williston was?
Certainly, he's the executive director of the Texas Medical Association.
Okay. You ever seen Exhibit 228 before?
I'm sure I have.
Right. Now, was it your understanding, excuse me, let me read the first paragraph to you. Do you know who Dr. Marr was?
No.
All right. First paragraph says, Dear Mr. Williston, I called on Dr. Donald Duncan and talked with him concerning the chiropractic situation. He is most anxious to do everything he can and is completely sold on the idea that chiropractic benefits should not come under the Medicare program. Now, was that letter written before the study of chiropractic?
I don't know whether it was before or during the study.
Huh? Does that sound to you like Dr. Duncan is unbiased?
It sounds to me like he was impressed by a packet of information we sent to Link Williston at Link Williston's request.
Okay. You sent a packet of information
On chiropractic.
on chiropractic to the chairman of the expert review panel
I did not. I said to Link Williston.
to be delivered to the chairman of the
I
expert?
did not. I did not say that. I sent a packet of information to Link Williston, the executive secretary of the Texas Medical Association. At his request.
Okay. The letter goes on to say, it would seem that he, Dr. Duncan, is certainly sponsoring the denial of chiropractors participating in the Medicare program. Does that sound like he was unbiased?
Who was the speaker here?
Dr. Marr.
The author of the, what is this?
This is the
Exhibit
author of the letter.
228?
Yes,
Whom I,
It's Dr. Marr?
Yes.
I just couldn't understand from your
I
question.
have no idea who Dr. Marr is. I don't know what credibility to give to this letter.
All right.
I have nothing to do with this letter.
All right, let me hand you Exhibit 229. Shows a blind, no, it shows a shown copy to you It's dated August 21, 1968, from C. Lincoln Williston to William L. Marr. You ever seen that letter before, Mr. Taylor?
I'm sure I did.
In fact, didn't Mr. Williston ask Dr. Marr to approach Dr. Duncan at the request of the Committee on Quackery?
No, he did not.
He did it on his own?
The Committee on Quackery nor the Department of Investigation or any employee of the Department of Investigation never contacted Link Williston about anybody to see Dr. Duncan.
Okay. Did the Committee on Quackery inform its members that they should make contact with all of the members of the expert review panel who were soft on chiropractic?
We thought it might be a good idea to supply every member any information that they might want or be useful to them.
Is that why you supplied
Yes.
Dr. Duncan with the information?
I did not supply Dr. Duncan with any information.
Who did?
I haven't the slightest idea. I gather from this correspondence from this person whom I don't know that Link Williston did. The letter is addressed to Link Williston.
All right. Did you tell Mr. Monahan to supply Dr. Duncan with information on chiropractic malpractice?
That was one of the requests made from Link Williston, and I believe I did ask Bill to see if he had anything that he could send to Williston.
Okay. Now, when you talked to, I'm going to switch over. At one time, Marv Ryder of Blue Shield asked you for evidence of chiropractic malpractice. Do you recall that?
No.
Okay. You ever recall telling Blue Shield that they should stay clear of malpractice because the weight of numbers was against the medical physician?
I don't recall that I ever said it, but certainly it would be true.
It would be true?
The weight of numbers?
Yes.
Well, when there are 400,000 physicians and take either one of the figures you want, 20 or 48,000 chiropractors.
All right. Now, did you tell the Congress that you supplied the materials to Dr. Duncan prior to the study?
Did I tell the Congress?
Yes.
No.
In fact, you didn't want the AMA hand to show in that study, did you?
The AMA hand did not show in that study.
I agree. Plaintiff's Exhibit
The
237.
AMA did nothing in which its hand should show.
All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 237. Did you see that letter from Dr. Duncan?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure I did.
All right. Was that before the study, the HEW study?
I'm not sure. It's dated November 5, 1968.
All right. Now, do you know Dr. Pfeffer?
I know who he is. I don't know him.
Was he an AMA member?
There was either one or two AMA members on the expert review panel, and I think Dr. Pfeffer was one of them, yes.
And did you and Bernie Harrison have contacts with Dr. Pfeffer during the course of the investigation?
Not I.
Okay. Did you supply Dr. Pfeffer with any information?
I supplied Bernie Harrison with the information.
Okay. Now, did you understand that the investigation was confidential?
What investigation?
That the expert review panel hearings were administrative confidential?
I don't know what Dr. Southard was doing.
Okay. Did you sit in on any of the hearings in Washington?
We were prohibited from participating in any way in testifying before either the expert review panel or the ad hoc committee. All we wanted was for somebody. They could even choose the person if they liked to appear before either or both of those groups.
You were prohibited from testifying. Why? Because you didn't want the AMA to be involved?
We were prohibited by John Cashman, who was directing the survey.
Okay. Did you understand that John Cashman did not want the AMA involved in that study?
I'm sure that's what, he did not want us to appear before the ad hoc committee or the expert review panel.
He didn't want you to appear so that people would know you were there. Is that correct?
No, I'm not saying that that's correct. I don't know who appeared before the expert review panel. As far as I know, the president of the ACA and the ICA may both have appeared before both panels.
Okay. Did you make arrangements, or did the AMA through Bernie Harrison make arrangements to get administrative confidential reports of the activities on a day-to-day basis of the expert review panel?
No.
You did not? Okay.
I have no knowledge of any. I'm sure no such activity ever occurred.
All right. I'm going to hand you it might be Exhibit 537. Does anyone have a better? It's the letter from Bernie Harrison to James Pfeffer, blind copy to Doyle Taylor of August 27, 1968. Subject to correcting that, it's production number 42172. Did you receive a copy of that letter on or about the date shown, Mr. Taylor?
I don't remember it, but I may have. I don't think I ever saw that letter before.
You don't think you ever saw that letter, all right? Let me hand
Incidentally,
you...
nothing, as far as I know, ever came of it.
Nothing ever came of it?
That I'm aware of.
All right. You don't remember...
I don't remember the letter. I don't remember that we ever received any reports from anybody.
All right. Would you have considered that improper?
I'm not sure what Bernie is asking Dr. Pfeffer to do here. Bernie is saying, as indicated in our conversation, it would be helpful if we can be kept informed as to the progress of your committee work. Now, that is not asking him for the decisions of the committee.
All right.
It may have been asking him, when are the AMA's documents going to be needed, for example. You can misinterpret the sentence the same as anybody else can, you know.
All right. I don't want to misinterpret it. Let me hand you Plaintiff's Exhibit 230. It also has Plaintiff's Exhibit 1579 on it. A letter from Bill Ramsey to H. Doyle Taylor of September 3rd, 1968. Did you receive that letter on or about the date indicated on it, Mr. Taylor?
I'm sure I did. The stamp of receipt is on here.
All right.
You know, you have a lot of stuff attached here. Do you know that?
No, I'm not certain what's all in the... I know there's more than one.
Well, you have... If you want me to go through those one by one, you got letters from John Southard and everything else.
Oh, there isn't any question that there's a letter from John Southard to you giving the list of consultants.
That's right.
All right. And then the cover letter says, Dr. Pfeffer, was he a member of the expert review panel?
Yes.
And a member of the AMA?
Yes.
And he sent a notation to you on what Dr. Southard had supplied, indicating which members of the expert review panel were soft on chiropractic. You remember that?
No. Nobody ever sent me any such information.
Well, excuse me. You see the first...
You're mixing up. This letter is dated September 3rd. This letter is dated August 1st, and you have it behind the one dated September 3rd. What are we talking about here?
Well, the first letter is the one that Dr. Southard sent to the AMA. And then
that's
William...
Bill Ramsey.
I understand that. The August letter is the one of Dr. Southard to you, indicating who the expert review panel members were, correct?
That's not what the letter says.
All right.
If you'll just read the first sentence, you'll see what he
This is
says.
the lists of consultants to the independent practitioner study.
Okay?
Were the
That's it,
consultants,
consultants.
the consultants were the expert review panel,
No,
was not?
it was not.
All right. Attached to it is the expert review panel on chiropractic. And you see in the margin where it says soft.
Yes, I see where it's marked, where the word soft appears.
Does that remind you that you were informed of which members of the expert review panel were soft on chiropractic?
Yes, but I can assure you that that is not John Southard who wrote soft on there.
No, I think Dr. Pfeffer did.
I don't think Dr. Pfeffer wrote it on there.
All right. Excuse me. Go to the front letter, and does that indicate to you, that's the letter to you from Bill Ramsey, is that correct?
Yes.
And does he say what he's sending to you?
I have checked the enclosed with Dr. Pfeffer. He indicates that several other individuals are soft on chiropractic. It's possible that this is Dr. Pfeffer's designation of, I believe, one person on the expert review panel he has soft, and that's Manel, Dr. Manel.
All right. Did you ask him to let you know who was soft on chiropractic?
I didn't ask him anything.
Do you know why he sent you a letter telling you who was soft on chiropractic?
Bill Ramsey?
Dr. Pfeffer's analysis of who was soft on chiropractic.
Boy, you're sure mixing apples and oranges when you throw John Southard's letter in here. John Southard had absolutely nothing to do with any designation of any of these people other than to give them to me by name.
Excuse me, I didn't throw the letter in there. That letter was an AMA production. It
Well, it
came
doesn't
from the
belong
AMA
in here.
files. No. It's the list of the expert review panel with the soft written on it.
It is not the list of consultants to the independent practitioner study.
All right.
That's what the letter says it is. It is not that.
All right. Okay. Plaintiff's Exhibit 704 is a letter from you to Bill Ramsey. It's also Exhibit 231. There's a cross number. Did you write that letter?
I'm sure I did.
What do you mean Bernie Harrison was going to be the contact man?
He was going to be the man who would send the information to Dr. Pfeffer.
Okay, what information?
Chiropractic packet.
Now, I thought the AMA wasn't supposed to be involved in this study.
Is that a question?
Is that correct?
At the request of HEW, we were directly involved.
Excuse me. Why were you dealing with Dr. Pfeffer?
We were not dealing with Dr. Pfeffer. We were supplying information to people who were going to give it to Dr. Pfeffer.
Okay. Was Dr. Pfeffer supplying information to Bernie Harrison and the AMA that was administrative confidential so you could follow what was happening?
I never received any information from anybody.
Would you have considered that improper?
I would love to have had it because I think the panel was loaded in favor of chiropractic.
Well,
I was scared to death.
okay, the document you get there indicates only one man is soft on chiropractic. Is that correct?
That's one man's opinion. He doesn't know the other people.
Well, you knew that Dr. Duncan,
No, I didn't know at this time. I didn't.
you didn't know at that time that
No.
you had supplied him with, that the AMA had supplied him with the evidences of chiropractic malpractice?
You are misstating what I told you. I never supplied Dr. Duncan anything. I supplied it to Link Williston of the Texas Medical Association.
All right. Well, Mr. Monahan must have supplied
Subsequent to that,
subsequent to that.
he asked for if we had any evidence of malpractice in an entirely separate letter.
All right. And the letter is Plaintiff's Exhibit 229, which is a copy to you, not blind, and you turned it over to Bill Monahan
Right.
to supply him with the information.
Right.
All right. Did you tell HEW that the AMA was supplying this material to Donald Duncan?
Well, it was subsequent to this that Dr. Southard called and wanted to come out, and did come out and spent 2 days at the AMA. I don't know whether I told him or not. I don't remember. I may have. I told him anything he wanted to know.
Well, did he ask, have you been contacting all the expert review panel members?
I don't remember that he did.
All right. You didn't think he'd want to know.
I didn't volunteer it because he didn't ask for it.
All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 15.
Look, I had my hands full for 2 days with that man. I answered every question and gave him every bit of information he wanted, including textbooks and everything else.
Did you tell him that you had independently supplied the expert review panel members with the materials?
Unless he asked me, I probably did not.
Okay.
And I don't remember whether he asked me.
Was it redundant to be giving the materials to Dr. Southard when you'd already given them to the expert review panel
They
members?
were entirely different, not entirely different. They were very different types of materials.
All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 1529 is the administrative confidential report of Dr. John McMillan Manel, dated October 28, 1968. In the fourth paragraph down, he said, I was disturbed in the past 4 weeks to receive 2 telephone calls indirectly from, but quite clearly inspired by, the American Medical Association, implicitly suggesting what the tenor of my paper should be. I can only assure the consultant group that my conclusions are arrived at through my independent research, thinking, and experience, unaffected by extraneous pressure. Did you or the Committee on Quackery take steps to have someone in Philadelphia telephone Dr. Manel when you found out that he was listed as being soft on chiropractic?
I know somebody did contact Dr. Manel.
Who was it?
Incidentally, I have never seen this before.
No, I'm just, well, I'm mentioning that he
If
got,
you're-
I'm using that for the information that he claims he got 2 telephone calls, and he thought they were inspired by the AMA. You're saying you know somebody did try to contact him. How do you know that?
I can't remember the people's names. One was a faculty member of one of the medical schools in Philadelphia who had appeared on the program of the previous year's Congress on Health Quackery and talked about the achievement for potential of human potential. The Organization for the Advancement of Human Potential, which is based in Philadelphia. He called me and said that, or we talked, and he said he had a friend who was a good friend of Manel's, of Dr. Manel, who is the son of a British promoter of physical medicine from here to as the cure of all ailment. And Dr. Manel is a good physician. And not a member of the AMA. He said, would you send me a packet of the chiropractic packet? And I did.
How did he know? Excuse me, he just contacted you out of the blue and said he'd like to talk to Dr. Manel?
I cannot give you the circumstances. This man was leaving his present position at the University of Pennsylvania, or Temple, or somewhere in Philadelphia. And wanted to know if I had any contacts at the University of California in Berkeley, which is where he wanted to go. And I happened to have some contact. And he was in my office for this conversation. I did help him, and he did go to the University of California about 6 months later. At the same time, he said, now what can I do for you? And I said, do you know anybody who knows whatever Manel's first name, Dr. John Manel, or whatever it is? He said, I sure do. He said, why don't you give me one of the chiropractic packets, and I'll give it to my friend who can give it to Manel. And I did.
Did you tell him why you wanted Dr. Manel to have
Sure,
a
I told him.
chiropractic packet?
I told him Manel was on the expert review panel. He said, well, you've got a loaded panel, haven't you? And we did have.
You did?
In my judgment, totally loaded in favor of chiropractic.
How many chiropractors were on the panel?
And now, why be ridiculous? How many chiropractic speakers were on the panel? How many chiropractic friends were on the panel?
Excuse me, how many, were they all medical physicians on the panel?
No.
Professor Wardwell was not. Is that correct?
Yeah, and a frequent speaker at chiropractic.
All right. And Dr. Duncan was a social friend of Dr. Blasingame, the executive
But not a physician.
but he was an anatomist at the University of Texas Medical School at Galveston. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's right.
Did you consider him soft on chiropractic?
No.
Did you consider Dr. Pfeffer soft on chiropractic?
No.
Were you told by Bernie Harrison that there was no need for the AMA to appear in public before the committee because the decision had already been made, and for the AMA to show up in public would cause trouble in the legislature before Congress?
Either you're dreaming or somebody who was dreaming told you something that nobody else has ever heard.
All right. Yeah, time for a break.
That's ridiculous.
Just a moment. 339, end of tape 2.
I'm sorry.
We're off the record at 3:39, the end of tape 2.
That's in the letters.